you are. I have expected you to be late. Yes, indeed, our little adventure continues. Yes, I assure you, I called you here for a very specific reason. I called you here to continue in the history and layout of our world. Yes, indeed, it's very important to the storyline. I think the wizard would be quite happy if you knew about, well, our world and its history. Yes, you see, our world wasn't always dark. Yes, it used to be a bright and happy place full of joy and merry and love and all things beautiful. Yes, I know it's hard to imagine now, but there was once upon a time when war was quite an unordinary thing, and adventures were unheard of. Wizards were only fairy tale, and northern rangers were a thing of complete fantasy. But now our world has fallen to shadow, and there are needs for wizards and rangers and even assassins. Yes, dragon slayers as well, which I'm sure you're quite aware of by now. If you have been following along in your storyline, you would know that you are called here to be a dragon slayer. But enough wasted time. Allow me to tell you about the history of our world, of this world, and why it is so important that you come along on this adventure with me and the wizard. Yes. Alright, allow me to begin. Are you comfortable? Are you sure? Alright, let us begin. There was once upon a time when peace was average, and there was such a thing called continuity of time. It was before the sky was black, before the clouds had rolled in, and before the world had turned evil. Sunshine was a bliss, the breeze was nice and cool, and the valleys were whispered of faint fairy tale. But of course that was before the darkness. The dragons rose up in the north, about a decade or so into the creation story, and they started to wreak havoc on the men, people, generally the inhabitants of this world. The dwarves formed sort of a pact to stand up against these raging dragons, but they were not strong enough. They came to men for help, and they said, "We need help to defeat these dragons. They're destroying our lands, burrowing underground, and taking our resources. Would you not lend a hand and help us defeat these great dragons of the north?" Men, being willing, said, "We will help you defeat these dragons." They formed somewhat of a warrior tribe and set out into the north to begin the onslaught on the dragons. By this time, it was at least 15 decades into our story. They went to the north with great weapons, bows, arrows, enchanted swords, all sorts of valiant things. They waged war on the dragons. Many dwarves and many men were slain that day, but the dragons had a weapon that the men nor dwarves had accounted for. They had the time stone. Yes, in our modern tongues we call it the continuity gem. Yes, it's a very powerful relic. You see, it is what controls our time, the very fabric of space, the very fabric of our existence is wound up in this gem. The dragons had this gem and used it to their advantage. You see, with the great flames and wings and knowledge, they had figured out how to unlock the power of this gem, and they used it to destroy the dwarves and the men that fought against them. Quite brilliant, I know. I'm still not quite sure how the dragons found out how to use this gem, but they did, and that's neither here or there now. Either way, the dwarves decided that men were not strong enough to fight side by side with them, so they searched other places. They went here and there in the world, searching to and fro for more resources, for more people who could help them, and they came upon the people of the elves, yes. An ancient race, a very ancient race. Some call them the fabric race, because they were the first to ever be created in our world. They know great spells and great magic, things that were forgotten to time. They still have written down in their books, and they can access it. The dwarves went in search of these elves, and they found them. They struck up a bargain, a treaty, of course, and they asked the elves for help, and the elves, being wise and fair, obliged the dwarves and said, "We will help you." So, the elves went with the dwarves to fight the dragons. But again, the dragons were far too powerful. With the gem they possessed, they could control time itself, and they destroyed the elves and the dwarves once again, and they left almost nothing to their people. The elves were almost brought to extinction, and the dwarves, the great halls in their cities, were utterly destroyed, left in ruin. The elves began to be quite furious with the dwarves, because, you see, the dwarves never warned the elves how powerful the dragons were. They never told the elves that the dragons had possessed the stone of great power. So the elves, in great rage, waged war against the dwarves, and nearly finished the dwarves off, but the dwarves sent messengers to the men. The men came to aid the dwarves, and thus all the races of the realm fought, and the greatest war that has ever been seen in our history was fought. Dwarves against men, against elves, and the dragons sat there and watched. They smiled with anticipation, for they knew that their enemies were now fighting against each other. It was brilliant. But that's when the first wizard appeared. Yes, the wizard finally appeared on scene. He brought somewhat of a new element to things. He was a great and powerful wizard, very wise. Some say he is even wiser than the dragons themselves. But this wizard was bearing something more important than anything, any piece of knowledge, any piece of wisdom. He was bearing another time gem. Yes, he had a continuity gem of his own. This one was pink in color, and said to be more powerful than the ones the dragons possessed, for you see, the dragons possessed a blue time gem, but the wizard possessed the pink one. It is written down in the history books that this time gem, this continuity gem, is more powerful than any relic our world has ever seen. The only problem is that no one in our realm had the ability to unlock it like the dragons did. They say since it was so much more powerful than the ones that the dragons possessed, it needed a much greater and more powerful spell to unlock it, and this spell not even the wizard knew. So time went on. Men fought still against elves, dwarves fought against men, and the dragons grew stronger and stronger in their mountains, their northern keep. Till one day this wizard found a friend, a man who was wandering in the woods, trying to avoid all the strongholds, all the bickering and fighting of the races. This man, of course, is me. Centuries later, I know, but it is important. The wizard decided that he could trust this man enough to tell him the adventure he was on, to tell him the story of why he was in this realm. He told the man, which again is me, that he was here, and he had this gem that he needed to unlock. He said that in order for men and dwarves and elves to stop fighting, the dragons would need to be destroyed, because the dragons possessed a time gem that was causing all these races to fight against each other. It all makes sense, doesn't it now? The reason why elves and dwarves and men began to fight amongst each other is because the dragons were controlling them. I still can't believe it myself. All the lives lost, all the people who died, all these wars fought, all because of the dragons. But the wizard knew that if he could find out the spell, if he could unlock the time gem that he has, if he could unlock the continuity gem, he could combat the dragons, for his gem is so much more powerful than the dragon's gem. He brought the gem to the man, this northern ranger, and he showed it to the man and said, "I am looking for someone to share in an adventure. I need someone to help me unlock this gem. This gem, of course, is very powerful indeed." Okay, allow me to try and replicate the wizard's voice, if you don't mind. Excuse me if I'm a bit rusty, but I haven't done his voice in a long time. "Hello there, my friend. I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure. I have this gem here." And as he told me this, he showed me his gem. Yes, indeed. "I have this gem here, and this gem can solve all the problems of your world. It is called a time gem. Yes. And it is very powerful, more powerful than I believe you can even imagine. But I need your help. I've heard you're the wandering, what do they call you? The wandering ranger, northern ranger, and that you can help me solve my riddle. And you should help me unlock this gem. But the wisdom I need to unlock it is found in the north, far in the northern mountains. I know you've been there before. I just need you to take me there. For you see, I'm new to this planet, I'm new to this world. I need a guide who has been here before to show me the way." So I obliged the wizard, and I said, "Well, of course, I'll help you do this. Especially if it will stop all the fighting and the wars, and allow the sun to shine again. Of course I'll help you. Why wouldn't I?" The wizard replied, "Well, you see, my friend, it is a very dangerous adventure. Very dangerous indeed. I'm going to find the dragons. The very dragons who cursed your people. And I'm going to slay them. But before I can do that, like I told you, I must unlock my gem. For the dragons also possess one of these gems. But theirs is blue in color and less powerful than mine. If I can unlock mine, then I have a pretty good chance of defeating the dragons." This made much more sense to me, as I had only met the wizard once before this. And of course, I said, "I will help you, my friend." And a few, maybe 2-3 years later, I find you. Yes, this is where you enter the story. And I told you that we need to help this wizard in his adventure. And if you've been following the story, like I said before, you will know that the adventure is very important. But of course, now you understand just how important it is. We must unlock this gem. It's very important that we unlock this gem. For if we can do that, we can free our world from the darkness that's taken hold. We can free everyone. We can cause the sun to shine again, remove these dark clouds that have taken over our realm. It's very fantastic, isn't it? You don't look very thrilled. Yes, it's dangerous. Of course, you'll have to be face to face with the dragons, but remember the wizard said, if we unlock this gem, we have a good chance of defeating the dragons. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it magnificent? The dragons will be slain, and it will be your doing, my friend. It will be you. And me, of course. Yes. Well, I've tried my best to help you understand the history of our realm. If I did a poor job of explaining, let me know in the comments below. or you could just shoot me an email, whichever you prefer. For some reason, you guys like emailing me more than commenting. It's quite strange. But anyway, let me know if I need to explain this a little bit better. If so, I will do so. Of course, I wouldn't want to send you on such a dangerous adventure with such little knowledge, would I? Oh, and you might want to take this for your time. Yes, it's a golden ring. It's part of the currency, but it's quite expensive. Take it. It's one of a kind. Alright, thank you, and I will see you when we reconvene for the next part of our journey.